this video, I'm going to be sharing with you the 3 dangers of your old self-image that you must know about. These are things that once you begin to apply in your life, what I'm going to suggest to you, you're going to let go of the shackles that keep you tagged on to the old version of you so that you can really start to be who you are meant to be. Welcome back to another video. My name is Aaron and I help people expand their consciousness. Now in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you the 3 dangers of your old self-image and ways that your old self-image will actually sabotage you towards you experiencing what you want. Because the thing is our self-image, the way we see ourselves, has a very strong indication and a very strong influence over what we accomplish in our life. And many times when you experience any type of plateau or you feel like there's just a wall coming up in your life that you're trying to hurdle around, that comes from a block or the sabotage of the old self-image. Now, just to give this a little bit of basis too, as I've gone through my own journey, I've noticed that there's different levels of my self-image that I've had to transcend. I've had to let go of. And in general, when it comes to this kind of work, we normally think of as putting out and having to get to another level, pile on a new idea, when in fact, it's more about letting go of just what doesn't serve anymore. Now, this is going to involve understanding that of a thermostat. There's a thermostat over there on the wall. And right now it's set to 78 degrees. And if I were to open up the window, because I live in Vegas, or open up this door, it would go from 78 up to maybe 82. What would happen is the thermometer is set to a certain temperature that regulates what the temperature of the house is. And if I move that dial to 76 degrees, the AC will kick on. If I move it to 80 degrees, then it will kick off until the house heats up. Now, this type of mechanism is called a cybernetic mechanism. Now, a cybernetic mechanism means that whatever the base point is, it will do everything it can to make sure it stays within that base point. But the moment that you move the dial up or down is the moment that it kicks into gear and it has to do something to keep it there. Now, in the same way, you may be intending for certain things to happen in your life. You may be trying to attract something into your life. You may be intending to accomplish some type of goal. But if you don't link up your self-image or you don't transcend your old self-image, then you will keep continuing to create levels of sabotage and things in your life that keep you in the safety mechanism of the 78 degrees. You may be like, I want to turn up my life. I want to get to the next level. But the old self-image says, no, that's not comfortable. That's not familiar. Stay where you are. Because that is what that self-image knows. Now, the first danger of your old self-image is that your old self-image will do everything it can to sabotage you and to keep you where you currently are. Now, we don't have to think of this as it's us against us and we have to create all this resistance within, but it's about being aware of that self-image and choosing to observe it rather than react to it. So there may be things that come up that show and that you have to, in a way, hurdle through. And once you hurdle through it, you show that you have begun to shift, that you have begun to change. But the old self-image is afraid of new experiences. On average, we think 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. Of those, over 90% are recycled from the day before. And we're constantly doing the same things every day, thinking the same thoughts every day, feeling the same emotions every day, therefore creating the same things every day. Now, the key is to stretch outside of this bubble of our identity. And when we stretch outside the bubble of our identity, it takes a little bit of energy, because it's so easy to stay in the autopilot mind. So the key is to stretch outside of it. Now, when you go to stretch outside that bubble, the self-image, the old self-image, is going to do everything it can to keep you safe, to keep you to survive. At a certain level, this may have been something through evolutionary pressure that has kept us as a species alive, because if we were to do something a little bit risky or dangerous, it may mean death at a greater level. So the key is to be aware of that self-image and to observe and to a way nurture that self-image. To say, it's okay, I see what you're doing for me. You're actually trying to protect me. I recognize that, but I'm going to still do this because I believe in the benefit of it. Early on in my journey, I would pay attention to different things that as I was changing my beliefs about who I am, as I was changing to a new state, the way I feel, I would start to feel this resistance kind of bubble up inside me. It was almost like part of my self-image was so addicted to the negative thinking that I used to have, to thinking and to identifying with having what's called ADHD and to live in a certain way, that when I started to let it go, I started to feel almost kind of empty. And I thought that that emptiness was something to be afraid of, not knowing that that emptiness was actually a spaciousness if I simply let go of the negative belief. So something else that you may want to do to shift your self-image is to let go of the definitions and the labels, because those will hold you back. Those will keep you within that metaphorical bubble of the consistent thoughts, emotions, and actions that continue to create the same level of being over and over and over again. Now, I've seen this many times before with people as well, people that want to change their life, and right before they're about to make a great change, they get sabotaged. And it's themselves that sabotage themselves even though they're not aware of it, because simply of the uncertainty of what could happen. It almost causes us to go back in our metaphorical shell like a turtle. So the key to this is to be aware of the self-image and in a way, observe it, allow it to be there, and to acknowledge it. It's almost like the ego in a way. What you want to do is you almost want to acknowledge the ego, observe it, but you don't necessarily want to talk down to the ego or fight it, because then you create inner resistance. This is about being aware, and in that awareness is where you can actually shift it. Now, the second danger of the self-image is that the self-image will have you believe that when you shift, you're going to have no one there to support you. Now, this is a big this is something that for a while I felt, because as I was changing my own self-image, I went through a spiritual awakening back in 2012. It totally transformed my life. And when it changed my life, I started to relate to people in a new way, and it became very scary, because it was almost like I wanted to change, or it was just kind of naturally happening, but part of me was afraid of it, because who was going to be there afterwards? Because as I changed, so did the people change around me. In the way that it was almost like I wasn't resonating at the same level as I was before. So therefore, I was feeling a little bit lonely. And that's one of the biggest dangers of the old self-image, is that it will have you believe that it is going to be lonely, that there is going to be no one there as you change and you shed your old self-image. The key is to hold the frame. When I say hold the frame, it means simply trust the process, that as you change, the people that you resonate with will begin to be gravitated towards you at a deeper level. So you may find that you start to resonate with people that you never really resonated before, because as you change your core and as you shift and you let go of layers that no longer serve, you let go of the shackles of maybe the things that were keeping you related to the old version of you and to the friends of that old version of you. Now, it's okay to have them there, and it's okay to still be friends. The key, though, is being aware that it is not lonely when you shed that of the old patterns. That when you shed the old patterns, it's not like there's no one there. I just got back from California, and when I was there, I met up with like 4 different YouTubers. And there were people that a couple years ago, I probably would have never talked to, simply because I was unaware and I wasn't of that state of being, or that I wasn't into the things that I'm in now. And when I met up with them, it was great because we were able to relate on so many different levels. But you see, I had to trust the process, because if I got afraid when I first started creating YouTube content, a lot of people thought it was weird that I was making YouTube content, or it was like, why am I doing that? It's never going to take off. You know, a lot of people that I could tell doubted what I was doing and thought it was just a hobby or it was a waste of time. But I held close to my vision. And when I held close to my vision, not only did I observe my ego that was in a way trying to sabotage me from believing it wasn't possible, but also other people. And what I had to do is I had to recognize that I can trust the process because your vibe attracts your tribe. You will attract people to you that resonate as you change. So don't be afraid to change, because as you change, you will find that you resonate with people at a very deep level. Maybe it's new people that come into your life. Maybe it's some of the old people. However it works, trust the process. Now, the third danger of your self-image is understanding how the self-image works with what we call the universe, or what we call that of reality in general when it comes to this process. Now, here's the thing. Many times what will happen is as we change our self-image, we will get a reflection of the old reality. And the key is if we base our state of being on the old reality, then what happens is it proves to us that we haven't actually changed. Because what happens is as we are changing, if we are saying that our internal state of being is dependent on if the mirror changes, it's like we're looking into a mirror, looking at our reflection and saying, okay, I'll change once you change. Now, as funny as that sounds, we know that that mirror reflection will not change until we first change. But the key is many times what we do is we keep looking to the mirror, waiting for the mirror to change, and then we would finally say, okay, now I change. But it never works like that. You will continue to get an old reflection of the old self-image or an old reflection of the old reality until you respond differently to the old reality. So what this means is you almost have to become at peace with where you are and show that you and your internal state of being is not dependent on that of the old reality. And as you do that, you start to transcend it because you start to not be affected by the old vibrational energy of that reality and of that self-image. So the key is to once again hold the frame, but to understand that there may be some challenges that come up. And it could be challenges of sabotage of the old self-image, but it could also be the old patterns and the old momentum that you've had going for maybe 10, 20, 30 years. And as you become aware of that momentum, as those things happen, the way that you heal it is you become aware of it. In the light of awareness, you can then just choose and decide to let go of it having power over you, of transcending the victim mindset, and to then being an empowered state of being. So I remember that when I started making YouTube videos, for example, I made daily videos in February 2017, and at the time I had 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I simply held the vision, I held the intention, and I continued to make content. Now, after 1 week of making content, if I would have given up because I'm like, well, I don't have crazy views, nothing's really happened yet, then I wouldn't be where I am today. But what I did is I held the frame, and there'd be challenges that would come up. It'd be hard for me to work 40 hours a week at my job, plus make videos 40 hours a week. There'd be these little challenges that kept bubbling up. But as I became aware of them, I observed them. And as I was not dependent, I was not feeding and trying to increase my state of being dependent on what kind of results I was getting, as I kept in that vibrational momentum and direction, eventually things did change. But the key was to not wait for the mirror reflection to change, to not wait for the whole bunch of views to come in, for me to get validation to keep on going. I kept going no matter what. In the same time, many times in your own life, you may have to keep going, knowing there's an old momentum and pattern that's been going on for a long time. And that what you can do is observe that pattern and then choose to move through it. So the real power of who you are and who you are meant to be is about letting go of the old self-image. The old self-image has tricks up its sleeve, but the old self-image is something you can easily transcend by becoming aware of it and by stretching outside of the bubble of your old self-image to the habitual thoughts you think, emotions you have, and actions you take. As you stretch outside of that and you let it be okay to be in the uncertainty, you will start to transform your life. But the key is to not buy into the antics of it. It is not going to be lonely as you let go of the old vibrational state of consciousness. It's not going to be something where there's no one on the other side. It's just you. There's going to be people that you resonate with at a very deep level. If the universe throws some things at you, it's okay. It's a part of the process. This is about letting yourself and your internal state of being be what you focus on. And as you do that, you are not dependent on the outer reflection that you get in your life. Everything on the outside is a reflection of the inside. And as we change the inside, the outside will naturally change. But the key is to not be dependent on the outside actually changing. That is the paradox. So what I'm going to do now is link, but right below, you're going to see a link to the most powerful meditation I have ever done. It is my self-image meditation. It's one that you listen to for the next 21 days. I really believe it can absolutely change your life. What it'll do is it'll help you shed that old self-image and to reassert the way that you prefer to be, to you getting to your core. It uses NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. It's the one that I get the most amount of people that reach out to me and said, wow, Aaron, that meditation changed my life the most. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link that video right after this video, and what you can do is listen to this video for 21 days. It is powerful. Now, also, I'm going to be doing more live Q&As on Instagram, so I'm going to go and post Instagram right here. If you have questions for me, you want to ask me questions, I also post daily content over there. You'll see that as well. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already. Go ahead and hit the little notification gear next to the subscribe button so that you can see the daily vids that I do. And other than that, as always, peace, much love, and namaste.